Hey there everyone, and welcome to another daily dose of Aether Raids. Today's video features two matches, the first of which is this save and rally cluster. Besides the usual weaknesses to dedicated wall breakers and isolation, I see a significant vulnerability in the form of Hilda. This vulnerability is something you can take advantage of on any even-numbered turn, or an odd-numbered turn where you do not apply penalties to Fjorm. What you need to do is simply place a unit within 2 spaces of Hilda. This will cause the game to assign her the shuffle status, which is a mechanic that is intended to prevent a unit that cannot attack from blocking a unit that can. As a result, she will move on to the lava tile immediately, making it impossible for the save armors to take over fights for her. The reason it wouldn't work on an odd turn where a penalty is applied to Fjorm is that Hilda would just use her action to cast Restore on her. I strongly advise reading more about the shuffle mechanic in the glossary section of the AI guide, since there are some specific conditions that have to be met. I've linked the page in the description. Another vulnerability is that you can actually force Muspel to move into a corner by breaking the healing tower and threatening only him. You could do this by placing a 2-move 1-range unit in the upper left corner and breaking the duo's hindrance, for example. This interaction relies on a combination of AI targeting logic and movement priority checks. Because the AI targeting checks require knowledge of the enemy's slot order, this technique will only be 100% effective if you have some knowledge about it. As the attacker, you can only know the 1st and 7th slot units on the defending team for certain. Ideally, the unit that you want to move and the space you want to move them to will both be adjacent to the unit in the 7th slot. Here's how it works. Usually, a unit will target an opponent based on how much damage they can deal and how long it would be to take to get to their foe. However, a weaponless unit will instead target one of its allies, with the intention of staying close to them. The 2 tiebreaks for choosing the target ally are 1. Distance from unit, and then 2. Slot order. So in Muspel's case, he is equally distant from Niffle and Gustav, but Gustav has the highest slot order number, as he is the unit in the 7th slot, so Muspel will target him. For the movement priority portion of the interaction, obviously by threatening only Muspel, he will be unable to rally, since he won't have any targets. That means he has to evaluate his movement options. For that, there are 2 important tiebreaks. The first is distance from target. This means he will prioritize staying as close to Gustav as possible. But if there are multiple spaces that meet that criteria, the next 2 tiebreaks are 1. Whether any of the eligible spaces are defense tiles, in this case, neither of them are, and then 2. Which of the spaces are threatened by the lowest number of enemies. In this example, his current space is threatened by the unit that you stuck in the upper left corner, and the space in the upper right corner is not threatened at all, so he will move. It's a relatively complicated interaction, and it's definitely harder to execute than just forcing Hilda to get shuffle status, but the technique may come in handy on other maps where the enemy positioning is done more effectively. I deployed the Cedar team against this map. I wouldn't necessarily deploy this team against a map like this normally, but I did see some possible ways to force the enemy formation to break up, so I decided to just go for it, despite the fact that I was not really all that familiar with the main mechanic I was trying to take advantage of. That is the shuffle mechanic. The idea behind shuffle is that it will kind of make a unit that cannot attack, in this case Hilda, get out of the way so that a unit who can attack, like Fjorm and Gustav, will be able to do so. So what I wanted to do was break the healing tower and then place Sita on the lava tile, forcing Hilda to move back, and then get Fjorm to attack her. I wasn't expecting Hilda to get shuffle status on turn 1. I had actually thought that one of the requirements to receive shuffle would have been that one of the units that you're trying to move out of the way of would have to actually have a path to the enemies. And obviously Fjorm and Gustav do not. They can't traverse that lava tile. But I guess that's just not a requirement. So that was nice. I was able to get Hilda to move a turn early. So that's good to know for the future. My backup plan, in case I didn't really understand shuffle as well as I thought I did from reading, was to try and get Muspel to move into the corner instead. So the idea there is that Muspel, as a weaponless unit, will target his allies and try to stick to them as closely as possible when determining how to move. So his targeting priority is determined first by distance from your closest ally, in this case a tie between Niffle and Gustav, and second by slot order, and as the attacker, Gustav in the 7th slot is the only slot that I can possibly know for sure.
If you insist.
So Gustav is his target, and the movement priority is that he'll want to stick as close to Gustav as possible, but within that, if he has multiple options for doing so, then he will choose to go for the least threatened space. So obviously, another prerequisite is that you only threaten Muspel, since otherwise he'd just rally. So I was just going to place Sita up in the upper left corner. My flying Sita, of course. Harmonic Sita has 3 movements. She would have threatened Niffle.
Good morning.
And from there, that would just force Muspel to move. Of course, it was unnecessary because the Hilda thing worked out. But it was just one more layer to the plan in case that portion of it didn't go my way. Once I managed to get the Fjorm moving and attack my Harmonic Sita, it's just clean up from there.
What is it?
Now, without the far save, Ullr was able to demolish both Muspel and Niffle, and then Sita just took out the Gustav on the enemy face.
I feel your gaze.
Very well.
Let's go.
The second map is a space oppression setup. There's also a 7th slot element where Eldigan is going to jump out in front of Note on the first turn and give her a refresh. I think that there's a couple big weaknesses. One, obviously, Ascended Fjord. I'm just getting that out of the way right now. But another big weakness is just the fact that Note doesn't have an assist. You can't see that now because I forgot to take the skill screenshots. Oh, I mean... some dunderhead forgot to take the skill screenshots. Couldn't have been me. Totally. So what you can do is you can just stick somebody in range of Nana, or I guess Brave Lynn. I just called out Nana because I figure it's easier to survive her. And Note moves immediately after Nana attacks, so she just gets the refresh from Triandra right then and there. And unless you break the Black Eagle or Blue Lion banners, she's just moving straight down. So it's not like the other cavalry units get a range extension off of her movement. So, yeah, that's weird. I don't really know what that's all about, but it's a pretty easy way to get the map moving, get the enemies moving rather, without actually putting your units in any sort of danger. I deployed the Sita team for this match. I actually thought that I had the trap theory calculated out for this match correctly, but I was very wrong. My idea here was I would smite Sita up. If the bolt trap was real, which it was, then it would either deal enough damage to put her under half HP and one-shot Note, or too little damage for her to die to Note's counterattack. So then she'd just take the counterattack and be under half HP for Wings of Mercy shenanigans. 30 damage is the one scenario that kept Sita above half HP and put Note below the one-shot threshold. So that kind of sucked. It's my fault, really, for not properly doing a case-by-case check on each possible bolt trap damage value. So I'll just have to remember to do that in the future. I got saved here, though, by the greatness of Harmonic Sita. She was able to go through 3 enemies, and then with the power of her Harmonized skill, Flying Sita took out 2 herself, and then Hell got refreshed into my Harmonic Sita and died a horrible, painful death on the enemy phase. So that's it. I guess really the only other thing that I would note for what I was trying to do is that if the upper bolt trap had been fake, then I would have just had Peony walk onto the lower one after Sita attacked Note. So that would get the counterattack damage and the bolt trap damage safely, and then I just give Peony her action back by moving Harmonic Sita and activating Harmonized skill immediately.
Death's caress.
So that was the idea behind what I was trying to do, and unfortunately I just did not calculate it right at all. So that kind of sucked, but worked out in the end.
It will be done.
The glimmer of life. This will be fun.